Hey everyone, it's Nightharo here, and today you're getting my first melee build for Dune Awakening. So I absolutely love this game. I've got just under 1,000 hours in the game so far. I play PvE, I play PvP, I solo testing stations. Anything in Dune Awakening, I am absolutely sold on it, and I love this game so much. Let's get a little water sealed here. So today I'm going to show you a build in two parts. I'm going to show you first on my level 90 character that's on one of the servers I'm on, and then I'm going to show you on a character that is 190. Not only that, I'm also going to show you PvE, because the whole point of this build is I think the hardest thing for most players to do is to solo testing stations. And that doesn't mean, and I'm talking deep desert testing stations, and I'm actually talking PvP testing stations. Although I think for most people, they're not really worried about soloing those PvP testing stations. They just want to be able to solo the ones in the deep desert, even if it's below that E mark, that halfway through. So it still is in PvE, where the mobs are a little bit easier. Still very difficult, but a little bit easier. And then we'll also talk, of course, about how to PvP and how to modify the build, because the main thing you want to understand about builds in Dune Awakening is that you're never always going to run the exact same skills. Okay, when you think about this, if you make a build that is good for doing damage, that's good for fighting in combat, either way, PvE or PvP, you're not probably going to have both knee charge and sugar wire claw on. If you are, it's not going to be that great of a build. However, if you're traversing in your overland, or if you're fighting out in the open desert, those two skills are massive, huge, and you're at least going to have one of them on your setup pretty much all the time, right? So again, you're going to swap things out depending on where you are and what you're doing, and we're going to go through all of that today. All right, let's go ahead and first start off with Swordmaster, which is where the majority of our skills are going to come from here. So we're going to start off, we're going to grab knee charge. Now you see I only have 1 point in this, because typically knee charge is not going to be one of the core parts of our build. I know a lot of people love it. The problem with knee charge is, first off, I love it for traversal. And general PvE, I think it's absolutely amazing running around in Haga Basin. I was singing the praises of knee charge while everybody was talking about sugar wire claw, and it's like knee charge is just as good and better in a lot of situations. And the reason and the way it's better is that if you're trying to go, launch yourself, across the map, I mean, there's not much better than knee charge here. There's just not. Sugar wire claw is not going to do this nearly as effectively. Not that it's not great, but sugar wire claw is better when you're going vertical. So we do want to grab knee charge here. We do want to know how and when we can use it. A huge problem with knee charge, guys, is in PvP. If you try to knee charge someone, the chances of you hitting them are pretty small. Now, I know a few people who can use knee charge consistently well in PvP, but most of the time you're going to miss, and the game's going to do this weird rubber banding thing, and you're going to lose several seconds. So you paid for a skill that didn't do anything. You also lost several seconds where you weren't able to do anything, and your opponent's able to continue and do whatever they need to do. Huge disadvantage, and why I typically don't recommend it in PvP, just period, okay? PvE, it's not bad, but again, we're going to have some better skills I'll explain as we go along. All right, optimize hydration. Arguably, one of the best passives in the game, because it's so quick to get, and whenever you're fully hydrated, which after a certain point in the game, you should pretty much hopefully always be very well hydrated, it's going to give you bonus stamina, 25%. Massive. Over here, field medicine. You recover more health immediately when using heal kits due to your excellent conditioning. So this is going to provide more of that burst initial heal. Absolutely crucial when you're trying to solo these various testing stations, or anything really in the game. I picked testing stations because I think they're one of the hardest things for people to do PvE wise. Disciplined breathing. Also, one of the huge, massive benefit to you, and one of the first things you should grab is disciplined breathing. When you focus on your technique and breathing, you can recuperate your stamina reserves more quickly. So a lot of times when you're soloing testing stations, you get in this combat, you do all this stuff, and then you got to run away for a second. Find a safe place, chill out for a second. You might have to parry a few attacks because the melee guys will chase you down, but you need to be able to recover your stamina fairly quickly. So make sure you get this on your bar. After that, general conditioning. You increase your max stamina by 25 points. I mean, that's it. That's awesome. Bigger stamina pool means, especially on a melee build, means there's more survival. I will actually point out that these passives are absolutely critical, even not on melee builds. These are just so good. Any build can benefit from these quite a bit. Being able to have another dodge, even though they're expensive, and being able to have a bigger stamina pool is absolutely going to help keep you alive. So keep that in mind. And then for our first primary skill that we're going to be using a lot is Crippling Strike. Crippling Strike, guys, what this does is it strikes enemies kind of in a cone in front of you, and it CCs them, knocks them off balance, staggers them, what have you. I have heard people tell me that this does not work in an AoE with daggers. That is not true. Even with the knife or a kinjaw, it's still going to work and still going to do the AoE in front of you. So don't worry about that. It still works in an AoE in front of you and can stun multiple targets. And remember, when we're in testing stations, multiple targets is a key thing that we're going to have to be worried about. All right. Now let's try to find. We're probably going to interrupt it again by being attacked, but that's okay. All right. So that's in the way. Okay, in our Swordmaster tree. Now we're going to take nothing from Will currently. There are some nice passives up here. So there's some really nice ones like Solid Stance, Confidence. There's reasons to take all these. We don't have that many skill points. So we're going to be a little bit economical with them right now. Okay, now let's move over and talk about skills on the blade skills, okay? So first off, blade damage. Extra damage with all of our weapons. Why not grab this, okay? Next up, retaliate. Guys, retaliate is ridiculously good, okay? It does 125% of your weapon damage. Hopefully you've got a tier 6 weapon. That's the first thing you want to get when you go to tier 6. It applies a bleed as well, and it does this in a huge AoE in front of you. So whenever enemies spawn into testing station, and you've got a whole bunch of them, and they all come running for you, and you've got like 4 melee guys, probably a couple of other guys trying to shoot at you, what you can do is wait till they get grouped up nicely. They come in, one of them attacks you, hit this, it will parry the first one, and then cleave, doing that 120% of your weapon damage and applying bleed and staggering all of those opponents, including anybody who might be using a gun or something else that is nearby. Absolutely amazing. Most people in that situation, what they want to use is Suspensor Blast. It's a good skill. Suspensor Blast, though, is much better for PvP than it is for PvE. And like I said, using our retaliate here, we can do damage and apply a bleed to all enemies in an AoE. Absolutely amazing. This used to also better apply poison status effect as well. I'm not seeing that happening on the opponents anymore. I don't know if it was changed. I don't know if the visual's bugged. I'll have to look into it more, but it used to be if you used a poison weapon, you could both get bleed and poison on the same enemy. Maybe it was a little too strong. Maybe that's why they changed it, or maybe it's something else, and it is still working, but the visual's bugged or something else. I'll have to test more into that. But either way, it's still an amazing skill. The fact you can hit 4 or 5 enemies with it, or as many as you need to, stun them, do damage, and bleed them, it's amazing. So use this often. Now, if you're in a PvP situation and your opponent is ranged, retaliate is going to do almost nothing for you. So keep that in mind. Not going to do a whole lot for you. So that's why it falls down our list in PvP, and it's one of the first skills I would actually swap out on our bar. Hey guys, it's a great time to remind you, if you like what you're hearing, if this is new information, if this is useful information for you, do me a favor, hit a like on the video, consider sharing it with a friend, not your enemies. You don't want them to know what's going on, but share it with your friends. And that's one of the best ways you can help out the channel and help me be able to continue making great videos just like this. Next up here, long blade damage. Typically, I recommend, even though I have a dagger on this build right now, I think I'm running Shadow's Drinker, just because I'm leveling this character and everything else. Typically, I would recommend running a rapier. That is the weapon of choice. You can still run a dagger or a kinjaw or whatever. Totally fine, but I personally recommend running a rapier of some sort with this build just for the extra range and everything else, okay? But if you did run a dagger, just realize you don't need long blade damage, so use these points elsewhere. Next up, Eye of the Storm. Eye of the Storm, we're noticing probably a bit of a theme with our build, is we want AoE, guys. We're all about the AoE damage. You hit Eye of the Storm, you can hit a lot of enemies around you whenever you're surrounded and what have you. Does a bunch of damage. You can also run up to an enemy and hit that skill. Works incredibly well. When you have this maxed out, it does a ton of damage, 140 damage, okay? So this is a great way, again, of just AoE cleaving enemies, of stunning them, and so on and so forth. So that's why we have it. So these 3 active skills is actually what I'd be running while in a testing station in most situations. Now, if I'm expecting some PvP, I'm going to swap out, like I said, at least retaliate. The other 2 skills are actually perfectly fine. You could leave them there, and there would be nothing wrong with this build. If you wanted to go with a little bit more mobility, I would probably swap out Eye of the Storm for something like Knee Charge or Sugarwire Claw. But even then, I probably wouldn't, okay? I think this build works just fine without that. All right, so that's our Swordmaster taken care of. Let's see what we got in Bene Gesserit. So here we have Compel is just a lost skill point. I just happen to have me spec'd into this, and I didn't want to respec because I'm playing around with stuff, right? So I didn't want to set the timer. So don't read into Compel too much. Bendu Sprint, we're just grabbing this because we need to so that we can move up the tree here. Manipulate Stability, guys. This is another one that is huge. Massive PvE, PvP, all situations, okay? Once an enemy is stunned, staggered, knocked back, you strike in vulnerable nerve endings to cause more damage, okay? 20% extra damage, guys. We're always going to be striking enemies that are either stunned, staggered, or knocked back. Pretty much all the time. That's pretty much the only kind of damage we do, and when we do damage to enemies. So pretty much 20% damage. Not pure across the board, but close to it, okay? Amazing, amazing passive. We're going to put it on here. It's not really going to leave our bar. All right, blade damage, just across the board, all kinds of blades. If you're looking for short blade damage, it's right here. So this is what you'd spec into. And then Weirding Step. Guys, Weirding Step is a skill that you're going to swap out. And the reason for this is because if you're in PvP in certain situations, you absolutely need to have this skill. And the main situation I would say right now is on the ships. On shipwrecks, the large ones, the PvP ones, you will have enemies that will come in and it'll be like you're standing in a corner. And some of those areas are really dark. How do you even get to them when you can't see? You're like, I'm getting caught on everything in a room. Happens. It's ridiculous. It's happened to me. You need some way to get to your enemy. And this is it. Could you use Sugarwire Claw? Could you use Knee Charge? Yes, to both of those. But I honestly think that Weirding Step is the way to go. It gets you right there. It's really funny. I've been accused of cheating using this skill before. Someone thought I was hacking because they didn't understand how I teleported behind them, which was hilarious. But an amazing skill and will allow you to port across the map. Now, you can do a 1-2 punch in that situation, which is Weirding Step followed by, I want to call this Low Slash, but Crippling Strike, followed by that. And the reason for that is because then you've got them, right? You port it to them, you hit them with the Low Slash or the Crippling Strike, now they can't run away. And that's really what you need. You need to be able to stay close to an enemy, especially if they are ranged, and you're going to be able to win the fight that way, okay? So that's what I would swap out first there because, again, it'll work in all situations. If they're melee, still good, right? Put you behind them, stuns them, no reason not to use this. So that's why we have Weirding Step here, so we can swap that in PvP situations. Eye of the Storm, still good in PvP. No reason to swap it out. Now, probably one of the most underrated skills, and I can't quite unlock it just yet, okay, for PvE, especially for melee builds. So Shield Wall, we're grabbing that just so we can move up the line. Solido Decoy. I actually need to try this out in PvE. I don't know what the enemies do. This could be a really good skill, but I'll have to try it out. I've just never thought to try it out in PvE. Iron Will, guys. This is, so we're grabbing this right now. We don't need to have it for PvE at all. It doesn't really do anything for us. A few random situations it might help, but you have deployed such a strong sense of self that you are able to alter your thought patterns to avoid the manipulations of the Bene Gesserit voice at the cost of stamina, at least those of lesser practitioners. That's all other characters in the game, right? So when it says lesser practitioners, that's just an RP thing so that, some people still can use the voice on you, even if you have this slotted for story reasons. But this basically means that it will cost stamina, but it will allow you to not be affected by, and there is a cooldown on it, right? So if multiple people try to do it on you, or if they try multiple things, one of them will work. But it blocks the first one. Incredibly useful for PvP. Someone might try to Weirding Step you. Someone might try to compel you. And right now, I don't think too many people know about this. I just learned about it, honestly, is that you can use compel to call someone towards you. And the only way to get out of compel is to dash. Well, if you compel someone and then drop, or have just before that dropped a gravity mine, then what you'll find is that there's literally no way to break out of it. And it's kind of crazy. If they're able to get off those two combos, which I should do a video about this, I will, they literally can't move, can't do anything. And you can just shoot. It's happened to me, and it felt absolutely horrible. So that is one way you can kind of help avoid that. It won't solve all your problems, but it will solve a lot. Okay, the real reason, though, we're running up this tree, guys, is Source of Power. And you can see, again, I don't have it unlocked because I don't have this capstone ability unlocked on this particular character. We'll look at our other one here in a second. But Source of Power increases your power generation by 30%, and the duration is 20 seconds with a 35-second cooldown. Guys, whenever a round spawns in a testing station, you're going to get shot at, okay? And you're on a melee build, and you're fine until your shield goes down. Well, what this allows you to do is find a spot, hopefully where not too many people can shoot you, drop this when they do start shooting you, and it will allow you to continue to basically ignore several of those ranged adds because your shield will just be able to compensate for it. Now, if you have lower level shields, lower level power pack, you're going to have different success than me. My character here is running with maxed everything, which is, obviously going to be a huge advantage why this is so easy for me. But I was doing this before I had all the bells and whistles. But Source of Power is going to help out a ton, even when you have lower level gear, because it's going to increase that power regeneration, okay? So this allows you, on a melee build, guys, just for gear, for those who don't know, real quick, the first thing you want to upgrade is your weapon. You need a melee weapon, a tier 6 weapon, or the highest tier you can get, okay? The second thing you need is a power pack and a shield. Okay, the power pack will keep those kind of go together, I suppose. But the power pack is huge because it'll let you keep your shield up for longer while you're getting shot by those missile guys. Whenever you're soloing testing stations, this is just going to happen. It's just going to be part of it. And if you have a lower tier shield or power pack it's going to run out quicker. Okay, so get that power pack as high a level as you can. Use Source of Power. It's a giant area too, and this is also one that if you're running around with friends, you can all benefit from this, right? As long as you're fighting roughly in the same area. Again, it's a pretty massive area. It will keep you guys from getting your shield taken out and getting knocked down. All right, and that is it, guys. Now, let's go ahead and then Sugarwire Claw, if you got extra points, max this out because it is really nice and really useful for traversal, and then you can just swap it out here either for Eye of the Storm or for your Weirding Step, whatever it happens to be. Okay, now let's go ahead and jump on the character that's 190 and take a look at the choices we've made there. Okay, now we are on our level 190, and you can see I have no skill points whatsoever. Okay, so here we do have our Source of Power, as we were talking about before. We're running Retaliate, and we're running Crippling Strike. I was actually just soloing testing stations with this build. Let's take a look at what else we've got here. Okay, here we've grabbed, Deflection, which we're just grabbing so we can move up the tree. Bleed Tolerance, we want to take less bleeding damage. That's great. Solid Stance. As your training increases, you have learned to avoid being knocked around by your enemy attacks. You can take more poise damage before being staggered, okay? This is when you're staggered and you have to dodge out of it. This is absolutely crucial, huge for PvP, for both PvE as well, but mainly for PvP. You absolutely want that passive. Confidence, every time you attempt a difficult attack, like a sprint attack or a slow blade, you gain increased confidence, which reflects its damage mitigation. This is a nice to have, guys. It's not required, but it is a very nice to have. Reckless Lunge is also one of those passes that we could put in here, which will give us 40% damage mitigation whenever we're doing a lunge attack. I'm going to go over lunge attacks and show you when and why you should be using it. The TLDR is often, okay? So if you want, you could swap that out here. We're going to leave Manipulate Instability, and we're going to leave Disciplined Breathing, but you could swap it out with, our Bendu Stability, or I think earlier we had something else in our low-level character. It's just an option. I will also note that Thrive in Danger is also an option for you guys. I have found this to be a lot less effective than I would like and to be a lot less useful. It's one where whenever you're low health, you get these massive, massive things. It's great whenever you need it. It's completely useless whenever you don't. So it's like, you could argue that this should be here, and I wouldn't argue against that too hard, to be totally honest. We also have enough points that we grab Precise Strike up here, and maybe let me switch to the other side just real quick. Precise Strike, when your blood is saturated with melange, you see multiple ways in which to damage your enemies. Basically what this allows you to do, after using any Swordmaster ability, your next strike will strike twice, okay? So this is pretty amazing. So if you use a Swordmaster ability, of which we're going to have several, both our Retaliate and our Crippling Strike, our next attack, our next Slow Blade attack, will hit twice. Ridiculous. PvE, PvP, it's going to be absolutely amazing. So, and we're going to be able to use this all the time. And depending on what we go with our build, we might even have Eye of the Storm on here. We might be using that in one of these locations as well. So pretty amazing Precise Strike. One I would definitely grab once you have the skill points for it. Okay, now let's move on and talk about the Bene Gesserit. We've clearly grabbed a lot more stuff, okay? All right, Bene Gesserit here. So Recovery. This is just a great passive. Helps with healing regeneration. Why not grab it? It's right here. Next up here is Sun Tolerance, guys. This could be useful for you depending on what's going on, but generally speaking, later on in the game, this isn't as much of a problem. If you're doing a lot of overland fighting, this actually can be very useful passive, so if you have the skill points for it, grab it in that situation. Poison Tolerance. This is huge. Poison damage in PvE and PvP is super annoying, and having this passive is really helpful for it. Self-healing, pretty self-explanatory, right? But increases your healing effectiveness. It's amazing. Why would you not grab it? These are all passives that you don't have to slot, okay? So they're not techniques, so why not grab them? Vitality increases your maximum health by 55. Huge, huge. So your health bar is actually going to be more than just a bar, just like your stamina, okay? And with all of our passives in this build, guys, you should have like two and a quarter bars of stamina and like a bar and a quarter, bar and a half of health, okay? Again, trauma recovery here, you could take this. I typically tend not to, just because I don't think it is as useful as some of other options here. Bendu stability. This helps you resist taking poise damage. So if someone is like rocketing you, for example, that is poise damage where it knocks you around, you're staggered. I have had situations where there's some people that just in like a 3v or 2 or a 4v2, I'm in the 2 category, where one of them sits back and just rockets me and my friend, okay? And it got so annoying that I was like, you know what? I'm grabbing this for this build. Another part of this build is we will use rockets, and this will help us with, resisting our own, potentially friendly fire that we might have. So this is why I typically run this here. And then I run it with the manipulate stability and the discipline breathing, which we already talked about, in the last, when we were looking at the level 90 character. Okay. So a couple options there. You don't have to grab Bendu stability, but it is one you might want to grab. We've already talked about compel. This is just a lost skill point here. I should really swap it out with something else. Let me go ahead and move back to the other side of the screen. Bendu sprint. We already talked about it. Blade damage. You can see for some reason I'm not maxed out here. Manipulate stability we're going to grab, and then weirding step. This is all the same. We've already kind of talked about all this. Now, moving on to our tactician, you can see we do have source of power now. S tier skill, absolutely love it, glad we have it, and everything else is working just fine. And we can swap in Iron Will there if we need to or want to. Guys, whenever you're PvPing, I would consider having Iron Will down here. Okay, that's really my primary recommendation. Now, whenever we look over at the Trooper, so Sugarwire Claw, we all kind of know what this does. Great skill, level up if you want. Another good PvP skill is going to be Suspensor Blast. And this is incredibly useful. It kind of works like our Crippling Strike, that it keeps enemies from running away from us. And if we need a reprieve for a second, you can hit this and stun our enemies. Guys, if you step towards an enemy right before hitting this, there's like zero chance that they will get out of it. And I honestly think that it's a bit overtuned, because no matter how quick your reaction times are, I have never been able to get out of this. Because if someone steps towards you and you're melee, you don't mind them stepping towards you, generally speaking, and they hit this ability, you're not going to be able to get out of the range, okay? So if you get hit by this, the main thing to do is to not panic. Well, we'll talk about what not to do when we get to the skill section, okay? But Suspensor Blast can work really well. It can also work even in PvE. If you have a whole bunch of enemies around you, you can hit this, and it will stun them. This also works with inside of your gravity mines. So if someone drops a gravity mine on you, but they're close to you, hit this. That can stun them, kind of negate the benefit of that gravity mine a little bit. There are better ways to deal with gravity mines, but just as an FYI. So it is an option here, and I just wanted to show it. Now we're grabbing Collapse Grenade. We are grabbing Suspensor Efficiency. I really like this, especially because I do a lot of overland fighting where I'm flying through the air. So really useful for there, but otherwise you wouldn't need it. Gravity Field and Anti-Gravity Field, we're not, like, these are fine, but we're not going to be using any of these as part of the build. We really just get it for Suspensor Blast. So you can see on this build, if you don't care about Suspensor Blast, even though it's like S tier in PvP, you can drop all of these. You can save quite a few skills here, okay? And then range damage here, just increase our range damage. We're really just doing that because I had some extra skill points. And I was like, where would I spend this? Because we will, in any melee build, you still want a couple of ranged abilities. Now, you can go from there to disruptor damage. You can go from there to center of mass, which could be useful. You probably don't need field maintenance or gunsmith. Scattergun damage could also be useful here. You would go center of mass, then scattergun damage, and I'll talk about what this is. But basically, shotguns and drill shots is what they're talking about. Is what is considered a scattergun. Okay, and then if you wanted to go the disruptor route, you could grab that. All right. So a couple of options there. All right, abilities, techniques out of the way. Let's talk about how to actually use this build. Let's talk about gear first, okay? So first up, I recommend running something, a rapier of some sort. I really like Halleck's Pick. I think that's the way to go if you can. There also should be a ton of these out there because they're basically giving them away for free, several weeks back. But Halleck's Pick, don't worry, it'll come back in rotation if you don't have it. But I would recommend grabbing that. The other option there that strong option I would recommend is a jolt knife. Jolt knives can be really good in PvP, and the reason that they're really good, period. But the reason is it doesn't cost you as much stamina whenever you hit an opponent, and that can allow you to spam attacks and not give someone a chance to take a break, to regen stamina, or to be able to do any kind of counterplay. So Halleck's Pick is nice because it poisons, puts a little dot on them. If you hit them, you have to hit them twice. Both are fine, both are good, just different situations. If you are using Halleck's Pick, a lot of times what I like to do is hit an opponent twice, and if there's some other opponent, I'll change targets, let the poison tick down on that first target while I hit someone else and apply the poison to them. But some sort of weapon here, you don't want to use a sword, guys. Swords do not work as effectively, and honestly, they need some balance changes. The one benefit of a sword is you can AoE parry. The problem I find with it is while you can successfully AoE parry, then when you go to attack and do a slow blade attack on your opponent, if it's PvE, they will 90% of the time be able to dodge out of that. Sometimes they don't, but usually they do. And what's the point in being able to parry if you can't do some sort of counterplay, right? So instead, we use our retaliate instead, and that's how we stagger them, and then we get a full slow blade attack with our rapier or a dagger. Second up here, guys, drill shot. It doesn't matter what you use. I have ambition here. I've got several others that I use. Honestly, the double tap, the double tap Regis, I think it is, where it'll shoot two. You have to charge it up, then it'll shoot two targets. Probably better. When do we use this? Well, first off, you can always use this on melee enemies whenever they're approaching you to get a little bit of hit on them beforehand. So you fire it out, a couple of shots, and then you can swap to your weapon. I will note, guys, if you have a weapon out, so if you have ambition out and you're shooting an opponent, and then they get close to you and you hit, it automatically swaps your weapon. Automatically, with no downtime. So you can sit here, hit someone with, ambition or whatever drill shot weapon you particularly have, and then whenever they get close, you either hit your low slash or retaliate will do the exact same thing. So you can actually keep retaliate here as well, and it'll do the same thing. It'll automatically swap weapons for you. So that's how you use that. Get a couple of shots off. Another thing, and this is probably the biggest, I've never heard anybody else mention this, but whenever you're fighting those heavily armored enemies with the big, handheld Gauss guns or whatever, when you can only get one slow blade attack off on them, and then they either swing their weapon around, they do a Suspensor blast, they do something, right? And as a melee character, you just have to wait them out. So what you do is you get that slow blade attack in there, they go to do whatever they're going to do, you dash back, and then you can pop off a couple of shots with a drill shot while they have their shield up and while they're doing these mechanics. And then as soon as it's done, you go right back in for another slow blade attack. Guys, this makes killing those big, heavy enemies so much easier. So that's why we want a drill shot. Primary reason. You can also, again, use it on melee people whenever they're closing, and then they might come in for an attack thinking you're ranged, and that's when you hit your retaliate or you hit them with a low slash. Both will be equally effective and will instantly change weapons for you to a melee weapon, okay? Which is what you want to begin with. Our 3 spot here. I love the shotgun, guys. I'm using a perforator here. It's actually in rotation as of the recording of this video. I love this weapon, and the reason for that I like it so much is because it will stagger your enemies. It will do poise damage to them. Now, it's not 100%. It doesn't always work perfect for me. I think, I don't know why. Sometimes I maybe don't hit as well. But being able to hit an enemy and stagger them a few times whenever you have a whole bunch of those melee guys coming after you, or in situations where maybe someone drops a gravity mine, okay? They drop a gravity mine on you. Now you can't do any melee damage. You pop up the shotgun whenever they're shooting you and hit them a few times with this. Not only could it potentially kill them, but it's going to do a ton of damage. It'll also stagger them, okay? Buying you a little bit of time. So pretty amazing. Also, if someone drops a gravity mine on you, you can use this to destroy the mine. It's not as nearly as effective as our next option, but it does work very well. I've used worse weapons and had greater effect with it. But, having a spread weapon is going to really help you out if you're not, as quick on the reflexes, right? Maybe you're not as young as you used to be, okay? But it'll help you out in a lot of situations. Our 4th skill here, guys, and I think, honestly, this is like one weapon that is probably required for me on any melee build, okay? Any melee build, you still need ranged weapons, guys, but a rocket will be incredibly effective. If someone drops a gravity mine, you hit them with a rocket. Even if it's relatively close, it's going to do a ton of damage. You can down yourself. So ideally, don't drop it if it's right next to you if you can help it. but this is the easiest and best way to deal with gravity mines, okay? I'll heal back up here, and you can see whenever you use it, it's a little bit further away, I don't take near as much damage that time, okay? Because I'm not shooting it right beside me. So don't point it at the ground at your feet. Another thing you need to be careful with is that oftentimes the targeting is a little bit off. Like, watch this. I'm probably going to hit myself. But if I just fire off a rocket, oh, it was fine there. Sometimes when you're peeking around a corner, it will actually collide with the corner. There you go. And if you do that, you're hitting yourself basically at point blank range, and it will one-shot you or almost one-shot you. I actually have some footage of that happening. So you do need to be careful because it's a little bit deceiving as far as where you're actually peeking out the corner. I wish they would change this because I actually don't think that the weapon itself is coming. I think it might be coming from the center of your character and not actually out of the weapon, but it's a little hard to tell. Either way, just need to be a little bit careful with this. The rocket launcher also, guys, can be used to kill enemies that are far away, but they don't have shields on, or flamethrower guys, right? Because you can get out of range of their flamethrower, they'll still try to hit you, and that's one of the biggest pains as a melee build, is because they can do damage through your shield. So you can sit back and you can just pop shots at them. You just need to be careful that you're not taking too much damage while your shield's down, and so pop out, fire it, and pop back. Just don't hit the wall whenever you're doing that, okay? I have killed myself, like I said, doing that, so you want to be careful. But yeah, rocket launcher, absolutely crucial. The fifth weapon here, guys, and this is a little bit of an option, depending on you. I really like having a sniper rifle. One of the primary weapons that I used to use before I realized that having a drill shot weapon and having a rocket launcher were absolutely S tier. But I used to use the Dune Watcher, and you still can use this when clearing testing stations because you can get in situations where you can peek out, pop a couple of headshots at an enemy, and then peek back. And it can work incredibly effective, an easy and safe way of doing a little bit of damage. You just need to make sure that you're behind cover so that they can barely hit you, if hit you at all, while you're peeking out. Okay, but that's kind of a last one that's really optional. And that is it for our weapons, guys. So, it's a little bit odd, but you do want to be using all of these on a melee build, or at least several of them on a melee build. Ones you could drop, the perforator. If you don't have to have this, if you instead just want to go with a rocket launcher, it'll do most of the things you want it to do, okay? It'll destroy those gravity mines. It'll knock enemies off balance. If you're running Bendu stability, this is one I use often to be able to get away. If I'm chilling somewhere, all of a sudden 3 guys come running into the room I'm in, man, I'm going to hit 1 or 2 of them with a rocket. I'm not going to bother reloading, and I'm going to turn and run, okay? So that's how you can use this. If they hit you with a gravity mine, you get the perforator up, pop them a few times with that, and that'll be a good counterplay to that gravity mine. You could also use other weapons. I just want to point that out. You don't have to use these. You could use something like Seed. You could use for headshots. You could use a Disruptor pistol. Disruptor pistol used to be my go-to, and it's one that you could swap out here. I would probably swap it out for our shotgun in that particular case for our perforator, but anything else can go here. I will also note on the rocket launcher, guys, this is a tier 5 rocket launcher. The tier 6 one will do several hundred more damage per shot, but you don't need that. Mostly you're using this against enemies to knock them off balance. If they're PvP and PvE enemies, you just hit them with a couple more rockets and it's not that big of a deal. But you can do this with all of this with tier 5 weapons. It's totally fine. Everything else is exactly the same. Anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions about anything, what about this situation? What happens when they do this or counterplay for this? Let me know. Drop it down in the comments below. I've probably been in that situation. I can probably tell you what you need to do to be able to change that up. But anyways, I hope this video was helpful. If it was, you know what to do. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next one.